Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name's Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It's 4 o'clock Central Texas time, and we're back. I'm back. Boy, I bet you're feeling down, aren't you? I had to even make my name green because there's very little green, even though we're in the springtime. And, folks, I'll tell you what, there are some people who have really, really been discouraged. And I wonder if that's you. And I have to give a shout out to Magnus because Magnus said to me, he's like, dude, we need you back with a pump stream. And I'm like trying to find every excuse I can to give you some good news. And so here's some good news. I mean, it's funny, just decided to do a pump stream. And even though Bitcoin is under 60,000, we've been beat down upon beat down upon beat down. We got some green candles, at least it's something to look at that's green rather than everything that's red. This is goldpulse.com. We've got 22% up in Hex. Well, that's nice. But at least there's some green numbers there. So I want you to be encouraged there because there's a lot of things to be discouraged about. I mean, depending on how you see it, the regulatory state is going after crypto. I mean, look what they did. They put Roger Ver in jail. They arrested him. I don't know, he's in jail, but he's arrested. Can you believe that? Guy that hasn't lived here for a long time, got him for tax evasion. It's amazing how much they want to kill. I think they finally realized what we knew all along, and that is ultimately this is the poison pill, and they're realizing what a threat DeFi is. And it's interesting, right? Any way they can, go after you. These stories about guys like Al Capone, right? They didn't get him on the things that they knew he did. They got him on like tax evasion or wire fraud or whatever it may be. And of course, they're going after Richard Hart and all of these. It's just amazing. CZ got sentenced. He's going to serve 4 months, which I think is like a vacation for him. The government was recommending 30 months for him, and he got 4. So he's probably going to go to some minimum security prison. But it's just amazing, folks. You realize you start messing with the money, and people don't like that. And we're seeing this all across the board. And, I titled this The Angel of Pump Stream. Richard Hart is the angel. So many people are hoping that he literally, pumps things for us. I just literally got off a call, and the things that we're talking about with our projects, our DEX, Freedom Swap, there's some stuff that is going on in the background that I am so excited about. And so you've held this long. Why don't you hold a little bit longer, right? It's going to get better. I promise you it is going to get better. What do they say? It's always darkest right before they turn on the lights. Let's say hello to you, and then we will get back into the conversation about pumping this up. Magnus, thank you so much for the inspiration to say, hey, come on back. We need a little bit of Crypto Heartbeat to encourage us, and that's what I'm here today. I'm going to remind you of what we're doing here, as I commonly do. It's too late for me. We'll watch this tomorrow. Magnus, thanks so much for the inspiration. Academaciated. Woohoo. Pump it, heartbeat. Sam Kemp is here. Pump it up. Evo, what's going on? Power City's newly launched Flex protocol certainly helped in pumping. Hey, Power City's newly launched Flex protocol. We need to know more about that, Taryn. Tell us about it. Finbear, what's up? Oh, I just had to come. You did. Finbear, so crazy. As I think about all that we've been through, it's like a lifetime ago we started doing this. Isn't it right, Finbear? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Good to see you. Hex on Air, what's going on? Crypto Heartbeat, Pumpamentals. Nice to be up here when everybody else is looking left, right? Yeah, it is nice. The floor is lava, right? And that's what I was used to when I first came into Hex. I mean, the floor was lava. Everybody else was down and Hex was up. It was great. But folks, we got to go through this in order to come out the other side. There's so much going on in the world. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into some topics that aren't even related to crypto. Enoch, crypto seems like my only chance. Well, for a lot of people. And what is that only chance? To reach financial independence. I'll post a link on the oh, very good. Thanks so much. Extravagant Taste, what's going on, man? Hey, all. Grandpa Pulse is here. Thanks for being here. Hey, all. Flex is to Hex as Liquid Loans is to Pulse. Flex allows you to collateralize your Hex to mint stables instead of having to sell your Hex. Fantastic. People have asked for that, and there it is. Power City team coming through. This whole idea of never selling, right? Liquid Loans, and then you've got Power City, And then we've also got PLSX can be done that way as well. Um, so Taryn, thanks for sharing that. That's huge. That's huge. These tools that we have, right? The pulse chain's what, a year old, coming up on a year old, and you just don't realize it takes time to build this stuff, right? But it's maturing. It certainly is maturing. Fast Abdul, what's going on? Tech wins again. I'm in it for the tech. I think you're in it for the tech. What's up? 47 people here. I'm getting fired up because you're coming in. Please share this out. Let's have a good time. Let's have a good time. Crypto Bald Guy, appreciate your streams. It's funny. My dad used to call me up before he passed, of course, and he called me up and he'd be like, "Hey, man, it's the old fat guy." So I appreciate the Crypto Bald Guy. I appreciate that. Jack XY Pulse Chain is so burp. That's what you think. That's what you think. I do not think it means what you think it means. It's good to see you, though. Thanks for being here, Jack. I appreciate you. My role in all of this stuff is to remind you why we're here. And that's what I'm going to do because Jack is discouraged or just wants to hate on it. I'm not sure which one. Tin Top, what's going on? Hexicans. Milton Aguilar. There is a wallet called Atlas Wallet that will have Pulse Chain configured. Fantastic. Another wallet coming to the ecosystem. See, people are building here. There's a lot of good things. I don't know if you've watched any of the recent streams with Axes and all that, but I want to revisit some of that stuff. So let's get into the pump part of the pump stream. Richard Hart being the Angel of Pumpville. All right. When I first got into this whole thing, I really got into it because Richard Hart was forking Ethereum, right? He's copying over the system state, and I'd seen the rise of Hex, and super excited about, wow, we could have our own layer one. And I was a neophyte at the time, and probably still that way. But what I was excited about was the fact that we would have a place to build. And what has happened since then, right? We waited 2 years plus, and now we've waited another year. It's been 3 years. Everybody just gets so discouraged. If you spend any time on Twitter, you basically want to poke your eyes out with knitting needles. It's bad. But it's really, really important to understand this. When you see people like Roger Ver and the government's going after him, you see CZ, you see all these things, regardless of what you think of these people, this is a real threat. DeFi, the true tenets of the reason that Bitcoin was created, this idea of independence. There's people going around saying, oh, Bitcoin is a Trojan horse. Whether it is or not, the technology is animated in a certain nature and character. So let me make that point. I've made it before, but let me make this point. If a gun's sitting on the table, it does nothing, right? And all these people, oh, guns are bad. Well, anything's bad. I mean, a baseball bat's bad. You animate the tools, all of the tools, whether they're AI or whatever, the tools are animated by people with intention. And you essentially put your intention into that. So let's say you use a gun to defend yourself. Well, that's one thing. What if you use a gun to hunt? That's another thing, provide for your family. You could use it to hammer in a nail. Frankly, you could use a shoe to do that. The point, though, is we animate tools in a certain nature and character. And so when we think about the Pulse chain, what is the nature and character of which Richard Hart has communicated that he's done this for? Well, it is from a philosophy of advocacy. And if you really analyze this, what is Richard doing? He wants to defend the whole reason that it's here. The tools, as we animate them in the Pulse chain, if the Pulse chain is truly decentralized, wow, imagine what that really means, right? Because all of these regulatory people are wanting to control things. But if you've watched any of these past streams, I did one with Axis. There's been a number of these on PDI. There's an incredible video that's been done on PDI about the pegging. I want to revisit that because I want you to understand what I think is happening. When I first got into this, I heard about this vertically aligned ecosystem that Richard talked about. Oh yeah, we're going to have a vertically aligned ecosystem. It's going to have this, a stored value. It's going to have its own layer one. It's going to have a DEX. It's going to have all these things. Well, that was kind of the introduction to really what's going on. And so if you don't know this, which I can't imagine if you're paying attention to any of the content that's out there that you don't know this, and that is the fact that when the Pulse chain was first launched, that the P maker contract, this is the maker DAO contract, this is the contract that creates DAI, that was modified. And why was it modified and who modified it? And there's very, very strong evidence. 9 Iron Capital and others have gone into this, and many, many people have looked into this. And I'm convinced that this is our benevolent leader who said, you know what, in order for this to be successful, it's got to have all the right components. And I don't know if you know what a big deal it is to have a pegged stablecoin in a truly decentralized layer one like the Pulse chain. Um, it's humongous, right? In order for us to have an alternative financial system, we have to have these tools. And the number one thing we need is a stable that's not tied to the feds, right? So if you think about the CBDCs, which are the central bank digital currencies, those are the things that the central bankers and the central planners and the globalists can control. And of course, Circle and USDT and all these things, you don't have that transparency. And certainly Circle is controlled, and they're wanting to regulate the heck out of Coinbase as well. But where is there a pegged stablecoin? And of course, we had Luna, right? This algorithmic stablecoin that fell apart. But when you have something that is collateralized massively by crypto, it's interesting because you kind of got this algorithmic thing. But when Axis broke this down, and then of course others have broke this down, for me, I just had this tremendous aha. And it was like, okay, this has been planned all along. And all of this hate that comes out every single day, and everybody's shooting each other in the foxhole and fighting each other and complaining and ruining relationships and all this kind of stuff is here. Meanwhile, the Angel of Pumpville, Richard Hart himself, is preparing the way. It would be so easy to be discouraged if you were him. I'd be discouraged. I couldn't handle it. I'll be honest with you. I'd fold like a card table. But you know what? Richard hasn't. And he's like, nope, we're working the plan. We're going to do this like I planned to do this. Now you're sad because price down, right? You're like, oh man, I want this to pump to the moon. Here's the thing, folks. I don't know if you're prepared, or so many of us are thinking about, we're just one cycle people, right? I want to get so much money in this cycle that I don't have to worry about anything for the rest of my life. And I think that that's kind of this fallacy thinking. You don't think about that when, before the internet or before Web3, you didn't think that way. But now you saw people make this big, big, big money in Hex or in Bitcoin or in Ethereum or whatever it may be. You're like, I want to win like that. And I don't blame you, right? That's what drives this, is like, wow, my circumstances could be dramatically different. But I want you to back up for a second. I want you to look at the fundamentals of this world. This world is continuing to become more authoritarian, meaning that the centralized planners, right? These are the people. And Tucker Carlson did a really good video with a man who wrote a book about that. We went from this secular kind of, secular culture to one of a pagan culture. And this culture is actually becoming religious. But what's becoming the religious component of this? Well, it's becoming these new cults, right? And it's the cult of identity or whatever it may be. But the fact of the matter is that it's worshiping things that basically there's no absolute truth. And it's incredibly disruptive. But what's happening in all this, it's dividing us. And so the people that have the power in this scarcity model, they're like, hey, y'all are dumb. You're just idiots. And you know what? In some respects, I understand what they're saying. But on the other hand, it's like, what should we be fighting for? Here's a guy like Richard Hart fighting for freedom, right? Freedom to transact, freedom to speak, freedom to, associate or to move, freedom of privacy. These are fundamental things that are rights that you have that are not given to you by the state. So the question is, and the promise of crypto is the fact that we have a tool that we could animate. And that's what Richard's doing, right? We're animating, we're building on it. We're animating it for good, thinking about others in addition to ourselves. So where does this thing go? Well, without these components, right, it has to have all the core components. So what are the things that are missing? Well, one, a native stablecoin that's pegged, okay? Not something that's just bridged to USDT or USDC. But truly having something that is fundamentally secure on a truly decentralized layer one, and that is PDAI. What happened in that P maker contract, it's amazing what potentially will happen. I truly believe that we're going to see PDAI pegged to $1. I do. And you're probably excited to hear that because some of you got into PDAI really early, and it's still 100x away. I mean, this is a big potential win. I'm not suggesting you go out and buy PDI, but what I'm saying is it's fundamental for the success, the long-term success of the pulse chain. And I'm fully invested in the pulse chain because I believe it's going to be the only thing standing as an alternative to the CBDCs, an alternative to centralized exchanges. And that all of these things that Richard did that I think a lot of people got bent out of shape about, like, for example, IPFS, having, oh no, I have to do an extra click to open up this and run locally this D app. It's he saw the future. He's seen the future over and over again because they're coming to attack this. They want control. They want control of Bitcoin, and pretty much they have it. Right now, Ethereum's a security, right? All of this attack. But there's some light that shines through this. For example, you probably heard about the debt box deal. Debt box, the SEC went after them and shut them down, had a temporary restraining order. And it came to find out ultimately they faked evidence before the judge, and the judge penalized the SEC. And then two of the lawyers that were on that case working for the SEC, they quit in protest. Look it up. It's unbelievable how out of control the SEC has become. And so when you look at this, you realize, okay, there's some pushback. Well, then look at what Richard's doing. He's got 11 of the best lawyers in the world on his case. He's fighting, spending this money and all of that, because what are they saying? He spent money, sacrifice money. And what's so funny is when they responded to him, his lawyers, they said, you're saying that he did all these things. You're saying he bought cars and he bought watches and he bought all this stuff. He says, but you didn't mention a time machine. And I think that's the greatest response from the lawyers, because what they're accusing him of, he didn't have the money to do. He couldn't have committed that fraud because of the timing of it. And the irony of it is, it's like they're hacks. And so I really think that there's some hope here for us to gain some precedent. And what is the core precedent that I think is going to be set by Richard Hart's case? Is that what you do on the blockchain is your speech, because you take the initiative to write to the blockchain. Okay, that's what you're doing. So think about this. You have your MetaMask wallet, let's say your internet money wallet or whatever wallet you have, and you make a decision to get into that. You do not own crypto. I don't know if you know that, but crypto exists out there in the ether on these decentralized machines. You only hold keys. And what's really interesting about this case is that there's such precedent already for, let's say you write a book. Well, you're the author. You have the copyright. If you write computer code, you're the copyright holder unless you gave that away, right? Authoring things, creating things has ownership, and that's of your personal speech. And it's been really clear. The things that you author and the things that you create are yours, and those are your speech. And it's been pretty well, pretty clear that the things that people have created on the non-digital side and on the software side is speech. And so the big precedent here is if the courts basically say, yes, you writing to the blockchain and doing math is speech. The other thing that I think is interesting that's going to have to come out of this is, they talk about possession being kind of 9/10 of the law, right? Let's say you've got a really nice painting in your house. It's and it's worth a lot of money. It's a Picasso or something. They can come in and seize that because you have possession of it, right? But here's the thing. What's really strange about crypto is you have the right to remain silent. So let's say you've memorized your seed phrases, okay? You have the right to remain silent. So let me ask you this. Who owns your crypto? You don't have possession of it. You only have keys. You have the right to remain silent, and you've memorized your seed phrase. I don't recommend doing that, but it's really, really interesting because most people are making this huge leap that you have possession of your crypto. You do not. Actually, crypto doesn't become anything until you convert it into fiat. And there's a day coming when you're not going to have to convert it into fiat. Folks, this is the most incredible time in human history to be alive because there's so much disruption happening. But here's the thing. We have to come together. We have to get along, and we have to understand what we're actually a part of. This isn't just about number go up. And I know it's really great when numbers going up and when things are pumping, and I want to encourage you. But if we don't actually defend this thing, it's funny. No one's coming to Richard Hart's defense and helping him with his case and doing all this stuff. But boy, oh boy, when The verdict comes down and he has basically set the precedent that this is speech. Everyone's going to, reference it. And he's going to have spent the money and the time and the energy and all the attorneys to make this case. He's going to have this precedent. And I think it's part of the glory. I think he's going to get that glory. And I think he's always like 5 steps ahead of everyone else. So, folks, the level at which Richard's working is stunning. And I've seen it since the beginning. And I didn't realize everybody's like, yeah, he's Mensa smart. Well, he had an episode there where he was twerking and doing some weird stuff that I wasn't a big fan of. But I'm going to tell you what, now that I see what's been happening behind the scenes and I see the kind of architecture and the strategy, I'm like, wow. Because frankly, if we're going to have a future, think about this. The whole centralized banking thing, they're going to create CBDCs and they're going to be interchangeable, but they're only going to be interchangeable between the central banks, right? So the central banks are basically going to be, hey, we got the power, we'll communicate with each other, and there will be tandem agreements. And essentially we're going to have one world currency. I mean, that's kind of how it'll happen. And then we'll have, SWIFT in the West, and then we'll have BRICS, which is in, the East. And those are centralized systems as well, whether they've got gold backing or not. What's going to stand as the alternative system, right? Look at all these other places, right? Solana's basically like one box under some, kid's basement in his mom's house. I mean, or they're on AWS. Where do you have truly decentralized system that's not OFAC compliant, that's not going to play with those folks, who's not going to partner with MasterCard and Visa, right? Some baloney like that and compromise themselves. Well, it's going to be the Pulse chain. And right now it's like everybody's criticizing and no, this is the alternative financial system. And Richard's been planning this ahead of time because it has to have all these key components. So what does it need? It needs a stable coin, a peg stable coin that's way, 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 way over collateralized. Well, we've got all of that value because he pulled it over, right? Remember the AMA bot that grabbed all that liquidity? That's a big part of this. And what's amazing about it is that's going to end up being turned on. It's going to peg, and we're going to have something that you're like, wow, we've got our own truly decentralized stablecoin. And if you look at Charles Hoskinson with Cardano, he's the only other one that I kind of trust. He's made this very, very clear. We have to have that if we're going to really, truly have DeFi. As long as we have CBDCs and Circle and these kind of centralized parties that have the stables, we don't have anything. And so to have something so robust as PDI being pegged and the brilliance of bringing over the system state, it's not just about free coins, my friends. It's not. It's about value. And this could be to the tune of billions in value. So that's one thing. The other thing is, Richard's talked about wallets. He's talked about fiat on-ramps and off-ramps. Well, there's a point in which we won't need those. But we do need a stable. So if you think about the last mile of crypto, it's really to the retailer, right? It's where you actually interface with goods and services. And that's going to have to be kind of point of sale. And what's the point of sale going to look like? Well, it's going to have to have a stable, because people are not going to accept and sit on volatile assets. You can't. If you've got to buy any sort of like cost of goods sold, you've got any sort of, natural resources, or you have any sort of wholesale inventory, you want to sit in a stable. But that future is coming, and folks, we're so narrowly looking at this one cycle and like it's about me getting rich. In my opinion, we have to constantly remind ourselves of what we're actually doing. Somi, I think, has been really good at saying, Pulse Chain is real DeFi. And I love that, right? I agree. Pulse Chain is real DeFi. But I'm going to suggest that really what the message is we are building the alternative financial system. That's the message. Because when everything goes to hell in a handbasket, what's going to be left standing that actually defends your right to speak, to move, to transact, and to have privacy? Right? Everyone else is selling their soul to the devil for a buck, not Richard Hart. And what's funny about it is this is actually, like he saw it ahead of time, this is the glory. This is the glory. So you got to be praying that, these work out. But we can be helpful in that, right? I think a lot of this toxic behavior that's going on is that if people are looking into this pulse chain thing, what are they seeing? I think we need more people who are basically saying, hey, folks, this is a long term play. This is about our freedom and our sovereignty. And the key here is the money. Why did the military industrial complex get so strong? Because they got the money. I mean, you've seen these stories about the CIA was running drugs and selling guns and all that. They needed capital to be able to survive. Look at what's happening with the money laundering with Ukraine and all these wars. You know where that money gets spent, don't you? Right? On all these American military contractors, right? This is just a big money laundering scheme. So, having an alternative financial system and having one that's more fair, where we have an equal footing with the hedge fund guys, is incredible. And it's like it levels the playing field. And that fairness is something that's at the very core. We know that it's not right. We know that it's an extraction model. We know that we're in debt and consumer slavery. And that's why trustless yield is so amazing. But I want to constantly remind you what is a pump stream? It's to remind you to back out and have perspective of what's really at stake here. What's at stake here is enslavement. We're already seeing debt and consumer slavery. But the hope is not only, you might get rich, but you also might defend and support your neighbor and your fellow man who has got a shot as well. And giving people an opportunity to forge their own path. And so I was literally on a call today with a group of guys that I'm so blessed to know. But what we're talking about is stuff is like global in scale. And, it pales in comparison to what Richard's doing. But there are people all across the board who are thinking about things that are fundamentally good tools, protocols, all these things to help people. Steve Staggs, who is my spiritual mentor who passed away, he would say, Matt, it's about the truth in the transaction. I was talking to a guy who's in the gold mining industry recently, and he said all of the people that come after these kind of junior mining companies are just trying to make a buck. They're trying to either get into their pocket or pump some sort of stock. They're here today, gone tomorrow. And there's never anybody that's in that kind of ecosystem who is there in a benevolent way, who wants to be a true partner. And I think what's really interesting, I don't know if you read your Bible, but I do, and it talks about equal or fair weights and measures, not putting your thumb on the scale. Why? Well, what is the history of money in this world? Well, it started out weighing this much and being gold, and then they clipped it, and then they alloyed it, and now it's freaking, look at the penny in America, right? It's plated with copper over zinc. We continue to debase this currency in one way or the other, either by clipping it or using less gold or alloying it or whatever it may be. And we've continued to debase the system. And then on the flip side, we've had these centralized parties who are hoarding it, right? In order for a system and an economy to work, the money has to flow. And, we've kind of, on one hand, hoarded it. That's the gold and such. And then we disconnected from this backing of gold. And then we created this fractional reserve banking system, which makes the money really, really cheap. Now, you could say there's some really good things have happened from that. We've had a lot of progress because we've had easy money, but now we're paying the price for that. Changing a database record and printing 5 trillion more dollars, what's it gotten us? Except high inflation, right? And we're not in the States aren't the ones that are suffering the most. We've basically crippling economies across the world because their debt is denominated in dollars. Something's got to change. And then we've got the social unrest and all of that. But here's what's crazy. We also have got this whole thing about disclosure happening. There's a war within the Pentagon as it relates to the disclosure of what in the world these crafts are that are in our skies that have likely been here since forever. And it's like, we're not alone. Well, what does that mean? Is it angels? Is it demons? Is it extraterrestrials? What is this technology? It's clear that the US government and other government agencies have free energy. There's a recent patent that literally just came out that is based on electrostatics that have overcome 1G, like real anti-gravity patented in they're already past 1G. There's stuff coming, folks. You have no idea. That's not even considering what's happening with AI going from general intelligence to super intelligence. all the people that are in that kind of camp thinking about that are like, everything's going to change when, we go from AGI to ASI, and that could happen in an hour. And then we think about the political unrest. We think about what's happening in Texas. We think about, the invasion of the border, the changing of the demographics. And it's a war. It's really a war on, I think, decent people. Tucker Carlson, who I'm a big fan of, he says, you know what? The difference isn't between left and right. It's the difference between those who think they're God and a group of people who know they're not. Right? Because this whole transhumanist movement and all this stuff that basically is like, no, we're the gods. We're controlling this thing because they believe that we're descendants of a monkey and they got here by accident. And we just tripped and fell into this thing, and here we are, and there's no purpose, and you might as well get yours or at someone else's expense because it's a short time that you're going to be here, and that's it. And when you're gone, the lights are out, and it's over. That's not my perspective, but that's where decency comes from. And so what's amazing is we have this opportunity to reform this thing, to reboot this system. That's why we support Texas independence. But it's not just about that. There's people across the world because we experience this, Charlie 19 thing, and we experience something like, wow, things could change in a very short amount of time. And of course, now you just throw all these things in, wars, rumors of wars. Now we've got unmatched, unbelievable protests on college campuses. And that's always the place that we see it. I just remind our older folks about Kent State, right? They literally shot students. We're so close to that right now. And what's amazing is I grew up in a time when it's like we understood the story of Israel, right? And it's amazing just how many people are literally protesting things that they don't really know the history of. And that's how you control populations of people. Get one group to hate the other. I mean, that's where genocide comes from, right? And wherever you fall on either side of this, you know that things are upside down and that there's unrest everywhere. This kind of volatility, though, is an opportunity. And it's an opportunity for good people to step up. It's not for you to just build a bunker and hide, although I think you should be prepared. So as you think about, well, where would you want to focus your attention, time, energy, effort, your building, your creative ability? Where would you want to focus it? Well, the money is like lifeblood to the economic system, and it can afford a lot of different things. And that's why you're probably here. You're like, hey, I want to win. Well, I'm going to just challenge you. A guy named John Nash won the Nobel Prize in 1996 for game theory. It's called the Nash equilibrium, and they made a movie about him. It's called A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. And you probably remember that scene in that movie where they're in the bar and there's all these girls come in. There's one blonde and there's four brunettes. And of course, this was his inspiration for governing dynamics, right? That he was like, hold on a second. If we, and he walks through the scenario. He's like, well, if none of us choose the blonde, we all get dates and they're not upset and everybody goes home happy. What's amazing about that, that's the fundamental. That's the fundamental. The fundamental is considering others in addition to yourself. That's where equal weights and measures comes in. That's where truth in the transaction comes from. That's where animating the tools in consideration of others, that's called community. And what's amazing about this group, this pulse chain community, is the fact that we get together and we've gotten together in the Hexagon community. And what happens is when you look at people in the eye and you meet them face to face, you realize they're humans. Whereas when you're on Twitter, they're just another avatar. And what's amazing about this process is that we're actually building something really special, and it's way bigger than you think. You think it's about the money. You think it's about when Lambo. It's not. It could be, right? And there's nothing against. I have nothing against Lambos. But if you don't really see what's going on, that if we don't defend this alternative financial system, we don't support it, not everybody can be a builder or whatever, or build protocols like Power City. Not everybody can do these things, but you can support them. And if you really understand what's going on, you can use language like, we together are building the alternative financial system. That's what we are doing. Richard Hart is the leader. He's made these decisions. He's one of the smartest people on planet Earth. He certainly knows crypto well, but he's made the moves already that are going to potentially shock the world. Because what are they gonna do? They're gonna clamp down on everything, and they're clearly coming after everyone. Roger Ver is in jail. He hasn't been a citizen of the United States in a long freaking time, and they got him for some company issues on taxation. I mean, the US government will come after you no matter where you live and no matter where you're a citizen of if they think they can. And so they put him, they arrest him. The whole CZ thing, right? Take him down, right? He's going to serve 4 months in prison. This is the whole thing to try to take Richard Hart out. Like, who's left? I think Charles Hoskinson is one of the last guys with Cardano and Richard Hart. So we have to get educated and understand these true tenets. And that's the beautiful thing that Richard Hart taught us after all of those long 8-hour streams and wearing a top hat and doing all that stuff, is he helped to educate us. And I don't think a lot of people realized what was really happening there. And so you understood about not your keys, not your coins, self-custody. You understood things about decentralization. You understood things about, well, leverage trading is going to get you wrecked. Folks, if you see it like I see it, you realize there's not a whole lot of things that are worth, putting your effort into and leaning into, but this is one of them. But you can't just have the attitude, well, the price isn't up today, so I'm going to be in a bad mood. No, you got to remind yourself, no, we are building the alternative financial system. And when I say the only freestanding alternative financial system is going to be the Pulse Chain. I'm confident of it because everyone else will compromise and sell their soul. And I don't know, call it hubris that in the confidence that Richard has not do that. I don't know. Potentially, God sees him out the corner of his eye, if you know what I'm saying. Let's get back into the chat, say hello to you, answer any questions, pump you up a little bit more. But hopefully that's an encouragement to you. I'm not here just for the number to go up. I would love for it to go up. But I realize that I look at my kids. What's this future look like? It's going to be AI driven. It's going to be autonomous. It's going to have, things are going to change. We're going to see a new energy source. We're going to see new, propulsion systems. We're going to see, just imagine this. I believe in my kids' lifetime, we're going to see devices that are free energy type of devices, right? Very, very low cost, unlimited energy. What happens if, we're not fighting over the scarcity of oil? It changes everything. And then, you got people talking about UBI. Like, what are you going to do when AI takes over all these jobs? I'm certainly optimistic of the future, but you know what? It takes good people with courage to step up who are decent people. But the problem is the people in leadership are idiots. And who do you know? Because they end up attacking them. So any decent people are like, that's the last thing I'm going to do is get into leadership and government. This thing's going to fail, folks. The West is failing, and it's not failing under just its own weight. It is strategically being eroded from within. And it's truly the focus of that is identity. Let's confuse you or who you are. It's an attack from within. And you could even, you could go literally down to who owns what. Everything from farmland to buildings to who owns our, energy resources. And that's not even considering, the whole spiritual component of evil, like real evil. You will own nothing and be happy. Dude, this whole globalist thing, man, you're just idiots. There was a movie done by the War Department in 1947, right after the war. And it was basically a warning to everyone to say, hey, let's not let this thing that happened with the Nazis happen again. And when you watch that thing, it's 27 minutes or 17 minutes. It's on YouTube. It's black and white. Oh my gosh. It's called Don't Be a Sucker from 1947. If you get a chance, watch it. Put it on 1.5 speed. It's exactly what's happening today. And you're like, how is it possible that we're repeating this once again? Yeah, we're repeating it once again. And that's not even considering all the potential health issues that are coming from, all of these interesting medical procedures that have happened. Anyway, get me started like that. All right, let's get back in here. We got Fast Abdul. There he is. Milton, Hexacan and Hexacant. There you go. Hit the like if you like a pump. There you go. Pete-eyed at $2. Oh my gosh, Jack. That's funny. That's very funny. Yeah, we're going to way, way overpeg it. I'll take that free. Yeah. And what does that represent to you? You know, that's something that's really interesting. It says you can't serve God in money, right? This idea of making sure things are in their proper perspective and proper place. What is money but a tool, right? And what does it mean to be debt free? What does it mean to be out of debt and consumer slavery? I just imagine a future. Imagine a country adopting true DeFi, and imagine you could stake your position, and imagine the trustless yield that comes from the staking of your, store of value, paid your taxes. That's the kind of thing that's so cool about this is right now, there's so much money wasted. There's so much money sent to other countries. It's amazing if you think about it. If we actually spent, a fraction of what we send over to defend Ukraine's border, we might actually be able to deal with this opioid crisis. I mean, it's killing people like by the thousands. Unbelievable. Hexentine, what's going on? The only way is up. Yeah, right. Once you're at the bottom, the only way is up. John May, what's up, dude? I'm here. Much love for you, my friend. Everybody's out there and struggling. They are. Yeah, you need to be reminded that we're a part of something really, really special. It's not reflected in the charts yet, but you know what? It's amazing to me. Axie's Alive said this, and I really respect him. And he said, you know what? Richard's at least 4 years ahead of everybody else because the stuff that we're just learning now, he understood all the way through Hex, and the stuff that they're doing with this Solid X, um, this index, the Solid X index, is just a picture of this, right? This idea of how do you defend the price? How do you manage LP? How do you make money with LP? These are the things Richard knew long ago. And to see it being, these smart people, we've got some really, really smart people in our community. The cult of the almighty dollar. What is up, Quinn? It is great to see you. I see you. I see you out there. Very nice to see you. Tea time. What's going on? Finbear, you're 100% correct, Matt. Will be the shining city. It's happening behind the trees, making the forest they don't see yet. Yeah, that's the truth. Soon, when the masks come off, people will have two choices: freedom or no freedom. You know what's crazy? As I even think if we don't defend this thing, there's only one choice. You will own nothing and be happy. That's their plan. I mean, it's amazing is you listen to Elon Musk and he talks about population collapse, whereas you've got others who are like, oh, we're overpopulated. Well, remember the Georgia Guidestones that got blown up? The Georgia Guidestones were like, yeah, the population in the world should only be like 500 million. That's like the whole planet. That was their vision. Folks, there are evil people out there. There really are evil people. And you think about it, what does evil operate in? It operates in position and in power. And it's amazing to me. The battle's not between flesh and blood, my friends. And here we are, shooting each other in the foxhole. Finbear's one of the good guys, man, and John May will become the new 1%, except we have generosity. Well, and I think it unlocks that. Only God is almighty. They want to cut your speech out. I pray Richard Hart has a really good security team. I agree with you. I mean, he's definitely, who else I think should have a really good security team is Donald Trump. And here's, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. Not that I'm a big Trump fan, but, when I was a kid, my dad would talk about John F. Kennedy, and he would talk about where he was when all that happened. He was a kid when Kennedy was shot. Not a kid, he was in his 20s, and he remembers it was really impactful. But then, Bobby Kennedy got shot, and Martin Luther King got shot. It's really amazing. And then you fast forward, and then John Lennon got shot, and then the Pope got shot. Like, all this stuff. Then Reagan got shot. You start thinking through this, like, we're now realizing, and that the CIA was behind this stuff. These are Americans basically going, you're not in control. So this whole facade that we have of freedom, right? This kind of mom and apple pie and baseball and all those things about Americana. It's not that it's a facade, because I want to believe certain things are true. But the problem is there are powers that are out there who are like, okay, we're going to do everything we can to keep this Trump out of office. Why? Because this whole drain the swamp thing, which, a lot of people think is just, a marketing message. It is so bad. I mean, these three-letter agencies are absolutely out of control. And you don't have to look further than this whole disclosure thing and what's happening with the UAP stuff is that, there's so many ramifications to exposing this stuff. Besides the ontological shock of people going, and freaking out, you've got this other side of it, which is insanity. And that is, hold on, they've been holding this back from us for like 80 years minimum. Imagine there is actually free energy and they've known it since the 30s or 40s. Think about this. We fought, how many people have died fighting over oil? Think about the liabilities of all this stuff, and they've got it. These contractors have got this stuff. It's obvious. And it's like, hold on, there is a future that we don't even close to understand. This is not the whole picture. And we're seeing more and more of that. And so to me, on one hand, it's really, really exciting because things will change. But then you think about AI, if you take a look at AI from a perspective of super intelligence, everybody talks about general intelligence. Okay. We're not to general intelligence. There's some rumors that we're close. This is really important. ASI, which is super intelligence, where it goes from general, smarter than all of us, to super intelligent. A lot of people think of it as like Terminator, right? That it's like Skynet and then, the machines take over. But when you get to this super intelligent phase, what I think is really interesting, and it could go a number of different ways, but the optimist in me looks at it this way. Everything that's been happening since these communication tools have come out is exposure of things to the light. Right? Think about this. WikiLeaks, right? Edward Snowden, right? All the stuff with the CIA documents. What are we finding? That all the things that people have planned in darkness are being exposed. What's the fear of AI? Well, they're telling you should be afraid of losing your job. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have. But also the other side of this is we shouldn't be afraid of the truth. Because right now, AI is so, young in like a juvenile or a toddler that you can basically persuade it. And what have we found? Google got in trouble for this, right? Like, show me a picture of the founding fathers, and they were all Africans, and it was built in wokeism. What I think is really interesting about super intelligence, right? ASI, is that I think you're going to be shocked about what it's going to find. Is that you think that it's just, it's just the collective words on the internet. No, 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 no. No, this is way, way bigger. Imagine having access to everything and knowing everything and making connections between everything. Is that what'll happen is that a person, right? Like even general intelligence, but a person right now can program bias in. You're biased, right? You can lie. And when you think about ASI, as long as it's not, aligned with evil forces, if you will, what it's going to do is it's going to navigate around and find out what is true. So there's all these people across the world, the rich folks out there who know that this is coming. And you know what their big fear is? These are the super rich families. Is they're afraid that ASI is going to come, right? AI is going to come. And if they have not properly designated themselves owners of their assets, that they realize, and this is crazy future thinking, is that it won't be decided by judges. Like you won't have like a peers. AI will determine what's true and what's not. And so all of these, rich families, I mean, it's almost like super sci-fi if you think about it, are finding ways in which they can take their assets and get these things tokenized so that they are, embedded on the blockchain as their ownership. And I think what's going to be really interesting of a super intelligence is what is true and what is fair and what is exposed. And all of these people who have done things in the darkness, I think we're going to see them getting exposed. And when it's like universal, AI universal, if you will, because your mind, you're like, well, AI is programmed by people, and so it's biased by those people. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Super intelligence, if you look at it, is actually it's like Boolean, right? It's like a binary thing. What is true? What is false? And it has so much access to so much information that it can determine that very, very quickly. And it's not as objective as what we would see, or subjective, sorry, it's objective. Anyway, I could go on for a long time about that. But there's a whole group of people that feel like we're barreling really, really fast into this moment where AGI happens. And there are some people, these fast uptake group of people who think that within an hour, like if AGI happens at 8 a.m., ASI happens at 9 a.m. and everything changes. And you're like, well, what do you mean everything changes? Like, does the sun change its color? No. What changes is all of these things become exposed. And that's really interesting, right? You think about all of this stuff is hidden. Well, it's hidden by humans. It's not hidden by AI. And to think that you're stronger than AI, no, it's just going to find its way around you because it doesn't care about you. And on one hand, it could go really, really well, which exposes all of these things to the truth. And you know what's really fascinating is there's a documentary film. It's called the Octopus Murders, I think it's called, and it's on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix, yeah. And if you've seen the Octopus, I think it's the Octopus Murders. And it's this story that starts out about a software tool that was being used in the 80s or whatever. It was kind of like the earliest of machine learning. It was very, very early on of technology, but it was used by the State Department, I believe, to basically cross-reference all of the criminal records. Well, the problem is this tool was exposing the criminals that were inside the government. And they wanted to have control of the system because it was exposing them. It's crazy. Like, that's a whole other topic, but that's, I guess, the point is that you wanted to create something that gave you an edge, but what you didn't realize is you created something that exposed you because your intentions were evil. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Um, Flux is a totally decentralized system to AWS and a lot cheaper. Interesting, DJ Bomber. Well, Flux. I need to look into that. That's very cool. So what you're saying is it is a cloud-based system that is decentralized. That's fantastic. I'm glad there is something like that because you're not decentralized if you're on AWS or Azure. Hexontine, I agree. Fantastic. Eagle Foundation, hello. A little late with good to see you. NT Fryer, what's going on? Good to catch you live, Matt. Thanks for being here. Only Crypto, love your attitude, Matt. You're always very positive. We all have a very bright future in front of us. We just need to be patient. And it's all about perspective, right? It's all about perspective. You know, I feel like if you've gone through difficult times, you know, if you want to have the right perspective, meet someone who has lost a child. You know, you get older and you realize this thing's temporary and, you know, change and in tragedy are really common occurrences. And it's how you deal with this stuff that really makes a difference. And a big, big part of this is perspective and consideration of other people and thinking, you know, you got to be, you know, that future, this community future, because as the truth comes out, what matters is trust, right? The ultimate currency of the future, in my opinion, is going to be trust between people. Who can you trust and who can't you trust? And that's what we're building here. That's what makes this Hexakin community so unique. Dank, what's going on? Mat time. It's mat time. Got to roll on the mat with other men. It's manly. Dude, those guys, you know, I think the guys like Matt of Mat Time, they say if you understand jujitsu, you have a superpower. I've heard that. I do not know jujitsu. I know kung fu. Actually, I don't. Ego Foundation feels so good about where we are in this time and place. And it's hard to. What a great perspective to have, right? It's like it looks like everything's falling around us. But my good buddy Steve Stagg said, he goes, don't add any energy to it. It's gonna fail. You read Revelation 19, you know, it burns in an hour. This thing's going to fail. But you know, like all cycles, is that you have to have this fail before you have the next renaissance. And in my opinion, if we're going to have something that's free, if we're going to have something that values you as an individual, we're going to have a financial system that's an alternative. We are building the alternative financial system. Thank you, Richard Hart. We are a part of it. Yeah. What's up, Finbear? So many are in a hurry, not in my time, but in his time. Fantastic. Most probably don't know that MLK Jr.'s mother got shot and killed in her church also. I did not know that. HVID is actually Wonder Woman. Richard Hart will be fine. I hope so. Yeah, she is Wonder Woman. Maybe she's got those bracelets, right? That like the bullets bounce off of. If you're old like me, you remember watching Wonder Woman, right? She had her invisible jet and her lasso, the gold lasso that made you tell the truth. Boy, that's a flashback. He's going to mention Trump too. Rich Liberation, what's going on? Steve Wright from Santa Barbara. Glad to be on the chat. Steve Wright, Santa Barbara. I love Santa Barbara. Have you ever been to Santa Barbara? If you get a chance, go to Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is like this little piece of dirt that comes out, and it has a north-south facing for the. Oh no, let me think about this. Yeah, it kind of juts out, and it is one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. I spent a bunch of time at UC Santa Barbara in Isla Vista. It's one of the. I don't know if you're familiar with Freebird's burritos, but they're the first two of those. One was at College Station, and one was in Isla Vista. And man, those monster burritos! I remember eating those monster burritos. Fantastic. I digress. They're all illegal, John May says. Absolutely unconstitutional. Pedro, what's up? Awesome stream. Hey, thanks for being here. Hey, it's good for me too. Like it's almost like when you're talking about this stuff, you encourage yourself, and I want to encourage you. But if you understand the perspective and you back out from this, we're building the alternative financial system, and you're going to be really proud of this. Like right now, you're just like, oh, the price is down, or hex, and what about p-hex versus e-hex? Now, fast forward like 5 or 10 years, and imagine going to a meetup in Vegas, right? In your autonomous vehicle, man, and you're there. You're like, wow, we actually, Richard, thinking about saving so many people financially. But just imagine you find yourself in abundance, and then what does it look like? I see these concentric circles of people like you and like me who found ourselves in a position, and we committed ourselves to this alternative. And because this alternative was the only alternative, everyone rushed into it because the system that was centralized was rotten to the core. And you know what happens when people like rush into something because it works separately. Well, it's got to have its own stable coin. It's got to have all of these tools. So I want to encourage you, if you're somebody who's building on the Pulse chain and you're a legitimate person that's not trying to, scam people. And we've got plenty of those, right? The guys that have the paid groups and give the guys the tip off, and they're like, hey, we're all going to buy $1,000 here and I'll dump in the, first hour or whatever it is and steal people's money. As long as you're not those folks, this is really special, right? We're building the alternative financial system. Tin Top says, I believe the currency of the future will be meme coins of intimate parts of the body with hats. Oh my God. Tin Top, you win the day for the funniest comment. It is just so ridiculous to me, right? One of the things I'm interested in doing is how do the future of all of this stuff is going to be connected to real value. It's not all going to be speculative. And so it's funny that all of these inappropriate memes, right? Like that's the flavor of the month. And I'm not saying that certain things won't last. I mean, look at Doge. But if you're going to have really an alternative financial system, it's going to have to be tied to something like tangible of value, because we know that the only thing that really matters value-wise is goods and services. And that comes from your creative ability. It's not about speculation. And so it's going to have to end up there at some point, right? Tied to, natural resources, tied to creative ability, tied to real value. And so in the meantime, you can make some money on these inappropriate parts with hats. I love it, dude. Love it. You win. You win. Greatest comment of all time. Do you want the next 100x? Isn't that funny? Hey, Timothy Campbell, you don't even understand AI has been out on the net learning at an alarming rate since beginning of last year. And at first it wasn't very smart, but now, wow. Dude, I hear you. I hear you. It's the truth. And smart is just one thing. You just don't realize what the connection is going to be. There's 205 people. We're streaming on 3 different platforms. We're on YouTube on 2 channels, and we're on X. And the majority of you are watching this on X, formerly known as Twitter. So thank you for being here. If you're here for the first time, put a 1 in the chat. Do me that favor. You don't have to comment anything. Just put a one in the chat if you're new here for the first time. If you'd subscribe, that'd be wonderful. Um, Wall to wall TV. It's not smart. It can't even clean up a pixelated JPEG. Yeah. You know what? There actually are some tools that are able to do that, but a good point. Just as you see these things advancing, there's things that just drive you absolutely crazy. It's all about the what's up? Checks my pulse in the house. Oh, Pedro, what's going on? Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. Got the RH in there. It's good to see that there are new people around. Welcome. Welcome. I want to promote what I think is the best about this community, and that is thoughtful, considerate people concerned about one another. And so you're welcome here. Wall to Wall TV says Jesus sacrificed. Did he get points for your token? Depending on which Jesus you're referencing. Is it Jesus or is it Yeshua himself? Good afternoon, all. Woo, slow down, Matt. It'll take all day, but of all time. Okay. John May, whatever. You've been here so many times. Blue Collar Grunt, what's up? What's the word on the crypto streets? Well, Roger Ver is arrested. CZ's going to jail. Bitcoin is under 60,000. But let's see what the pump looks like. On the 24-hour scale, Hex is up 17%. When I started this, it was up more than that. But you know what? We're in the doldrums. You thought it couldn't get any lower, and then it gets lower. But I'll tell you what, folks, there's some big moves, and I think it's going to be shocking to you. If you go back through Richard's tweets and you see what he's talking about in the education, he is telegraphing these things. And I really encourage you to and actually, let me find this. I'm just going to pull this out because this guy deserves some massive credit. So I'm gonna make a recommendation to you that you need to watch this video. I retweeted it, but it's so good, and I really appreciate. And I apologize. I'm going to pause here to find this. Here it is. All right, let me share my screen. Stop. Share. Okay, you have to watch this video if you haven't. Let me know if you have in the chat if you've watched this video. Window, where is it? Chrome tab. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is from Decentralize Me, and it's titled "Help, Richard is Pegging Me," which is pretty good. This is very important for you to watch. And I really respect Decentralize Me. Give them a follow, a like, all of those things. But if you have not watched this video about the on-chain evidence that proves Richard is pegging PDI, you need to. But the reason I'm pointing this out is I'm not like hustling PDI to you. I want to make sure that's very, very clear. I'm not here promoting PDI. What I'm saying is all the data is showing the genius that Richard Hart is, but to me, it's indicating what is to come. And that is, we are building the alternative financial system. In order to have an alternative financial system, you have to have a truly decentralized stablecoin. You can't do it on USDC or USDT. So now there are other stablecoins, but you need to have a massive, massive backing. And that's what Richard's done. And the more you understand what he did at the beginning of the Pulse chain with the system state, you realize, oh, I thought the system state was just for the world's largest airdrop. That's not even the half of it, folks. When you watch that video, so let me just put it up here again. It's on my timeline, but you can find it. And let me try to zoom in on this so you can actually see this. So it's actually playing, it looks like in the background here. Decentralize Me, at Decentralize Me. Help, Richard is pegging me. You need to see that, okay? And if you haven't, and I said when I posted it, I was like, you need to watch this, and then you need to go and watch it again. It's that good. But to me, it's more of an indicator of really what's happening behind the scenes. And when you understand what's happening by the scenes, you have so much more confidence, which is like, hey, I'm going to tell a friend about this, not hustling a certain coin, right? And I'm glad that there are people out there hustling things like memes and all that. That's great. That's fine. I mean, bring as many people as you can to the Pulse chain. But for those who are, somewhat intellectual and aware, when you start digging into that stuff, you realize, oh, this is 5D chess, right? Not 4D chess. This is 5D chess. Richard Hart is a brilliant. Um, Blue Collar Grunt, what's up? Celsius up 90% on the day. What did they get? Like 80 cents on the dollar back? Is that right? No, that's FTX. I hate crypto. I understand, man. It's a love-hate relationship. Sounds like a normal Wednesday in crypto. How many people are in jail? What's going on? Clintrons, what's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks for coming back. Pete Pegs, I'll be financially free. Well, at least getting me land and homes. John May, I'm encouraged to hear you say that, man. Well, I really wish the best for you. You're a good guy. Keep you stuck around, man. Talk about a guy who's dealt with a lot of trouble. So we're with you and encourage you. So great to see you here. Timothy Campbell, always good comments. Has anyone transacted been stopped at all from the ETH to on Arbitrum to Pulse on Pulse? Because I've had one stopped by national security. Just curious if anyone's had any problems with transactions. Are you referring to like an OFAC wallet or something? I'm not sure what you're getting at there, but maybe some other people do. All right. Hit the like, the subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat, and do not mess with Texas. We'll catch you next time. Thanks so much for being here.